The Free Thinker Show. Ignite your mind, challenge the norm.
Okay, so get ready for some truly puzzling disappearances. I mean, the kind of stories that just stick with you. You know, you've given us a lot to work with here. Everything from like mysterious Polaroids, right, to whispers of conspiracies inside the Vatican.
What we're going to do today is unpack what makes these cases so captivating and really importantly, try to separate, fact from speculation.
I am here for that. And I think you might have some aha moments for us, too, along the way.
Oh, I'm sure we'll uncover a few, as we dive in.
Perfect. Let's get started with a case that's practically, like, legendary in the world of unsolved mysteries. The disappearance of Tara Calico. It's 1988 in New Mexico. Young woman heads out for her typical bike ride, and that's it. Last anyone sees of her. At first, sounds like a straightforward missing person case, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a twist.
What really elevates Tara's case from simply tragic to totally perplexing is a single piece of photographic evidence. A Polaroid found thousands of miles away, months after she vanished. And this photo, it becomes the crux of the entire investigation, the beacon of hope. And unfortunately, a source of just immense debate and pain for her family.
Okay, so let's break down this Polaroid mystery, right? So Tara vanishes in September of '88, and then it's almost a year later, this Polaroid shows up in a convenience store parking lot all the way in Florida.
Thousands of miles.
I know what you're probably thinking. Florida.
Yeah.
Like, that's a long, long way from New Mexico.
Right.
So this photo, it shows two people, a young woman and a boy, both bound and gagged with duct tape. A woman, she sees the van as it's leaving, but even with a roadblock, the police can't find it. As if that wasn't unsettling enough, the woman in the photo, it could be Tara, but it's really hard to tell. I mean, the details are blurry, literally.
Well, you have to remember, this is 1988. Forensic technology, it was nothing like it is today. There was really no way to enhance that image with any kind of detail that we have now. And so that's where, the human element comes in. Memory, hope. People really wanted it to be Tara.
And there were details that kind of matched up, right? People who knew Tara, they pointed to what looked like discolored streaks on the girl's leg in the photo. Like streaks that looked like a scar that Tara had.
Yeah.
And there's the book in the photo is written by V.C. Andrews, an author that Tara was a huge fan of.
And that's where, you and I, we have to tread carefully. Imagine the emotional weight, right, of a missing loved one. Suddenly we're prone to latch on to anything, any potential connection, any detail that might validate that hope that we have. Our memories, they can even work to fit those narratives. It's a really powerful example of how even what we think of as concrete evidence, like a photograph, can be up for interpretation. And in some cases, even manipulation.
Speaking of manipulation, the plot thickens when the boy in the photo is identified as Michael Henley. He had gone missing from New Mexico too, but a few months before Tara. But here's where it gets even more confusing. Michael's remains, they were found in 1990, meaning he was already dead by the time the Polaroid even surfaced.
Yeah. This is a major discrepancy, and it throws a lot of what we think we know into question, right? Was this Polaroid staged? Was it some kind of cruel hoax, designed to mislead investigators and torment the families? Or is there something else going on here? Something more complex that we just haven't considered?
Theories are definitely out there. Some believe Tara, she stumbled onto something she shouldn't have. The two guys were following her, and it all went wrong, leading to some kind of cover-up. And then you've got the more out there theories, organized crime or even a trafficking ring.
And each theory, it's fueled by speculation, often lacking solid evidence. It just adds another layer to the puzzle. So for years, Tara's case, it went cold. However, in 2023, there was a glimmer of hope. The Valencia County Sheriff's Office, they announced a big break in the case. They even hinted at potential charges. The catch, the details, they're totally sealed.
Sealed identities, sealed evidence, the whole 9 yards. Makes you wonder what new information came up after all these years, right? Could it be the missing piece that finally brings Tara's family some peace? We can only hope.
Time will tell. But for now, Tara Calico's disappearance, it endures. A really stark reminder that even in the age of, instant information and advanced technology, some secrets just stay secrets.
And sometimes it's those unanswered questions that are the most haunting. Now, from a mystery full of speculation and whispers of cover-ups, let's go to a disappearance that happens inside one of the most powerful institutions in the world, Vatican City.
The disappearance of 15-year-old Emanuela Orlandi in 1983, it sent shockwaves, not just through Italy, but, globally. See, the Vatican, it's often seen as a sanctuary, a place of holiness. In this case, it really challenged that perception, exposing a side of intrigue, power struggles, unanswered questions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fact that it was a Vatican official's daughter who vanished, it just drew so much attention to the case. I mean, think about it. 1 minute, she's at a normal flute lesson. The next, gone. That's a headline that'll grab anyone, right?
Absolutely. And so the early assumption, like in a lot of missing teen cases, was that she ran away. There was even a tip about a girl who matched Emanuela's description, calling herself Barbarella and selling Avon products. Emanuela had even talked about running away before.
Yeah. A runaway scenario, tragic as it would be, it's not unheard of for a teenager, right? What really makes Emanuela's disappearance different, more sinister even, is that some of the theories that go right to the top, to the heart of the Vatican, like something out of, a Dan Brown novel.
Exactly. We go from a potential runaway to whispers of international conspiracies. Groups like the Grey Wolves, a Turkish terrorist organization. Could this have been politically motivated? Then you have the inevitable mafia connection.
Yeah, because without the mafia being involved somehow, is it even a true international mystery, right?
Yeah.
But what I find really chilling is the Vatican's own possible role in all this.
Yeah.
I mean, the chief exorcist at the time, Father Gabriel Amorth, he comes out publicly and says that Emanuela was caught up in this awful network, a sex trafficking ring, operating in the Vatican and beyond.
Just imagine that accusation, the idea that a place that's supposed to represent faith, morality, and justice, that it could be harboring this kind of darkness. It really shook the faith of a lot of people.
It really is. Like those in power, those who are supposed to protect people, they become the very people you need protecting from.
And to add another layer of tragedy here, the Vatican's response to the family's pleas for help, it was inadequate at best, and at worst, just callous and cruel.
Callous is putting it mildly, I think. I mean, Pope Francis himself supposedly told the family that Emanuela was in heaven. And, okay, while I can see how in a different context that might be comforting, but here, it just felt dismissive.
It felt like a way to just shut down the investigation, to quiet any other questions, like they were trying to sweep the whole thing under the rug.
And as if that wasn't enough. Remember how we talked about that Polaroid in Tara's case? Well, Emanuela's story, it has its own version of a cryptic clue, but instead of a photo, it's a letter with a photo of a tomb.
The letter, it told the family to look at where the angel is pointing, but like so many leads in cases like this, it was a dead end.
And a really cruel one at that. The tomb, it was empty, leaving the Orlandi family with even more questions. And if that wasn't bad enough, later they claimed that the Vatican was actually blocking their attempts to exhume a different grave that might have had clues.
Again, you see those power dynamics. Instead of being open, instead of cooperating, the family, they just hit walls, silence. It all points to a really disturbing possibility. Some truths, they're just too dangerous to bring to light, especially when those truths threaten the image of such powerful institutions, like the Vatican.
It really makes you wonder what secrets are hidden inside those walls.
I mean, it makes you think how many other secrets are hidden in places like that.
Right. So many questions, so few answers. And that lack of closure, it's something we see over and over in these cases. Our next deep dive takes us from the Vatican to, rural Vermont, a place that's become synonymous with unexplained disappearances. The Bennington Triangle.
The Bennington Triangle is fascinating. It's like this microcosm of the Bermuda Triangle, but it's nestled in this small, tight-knit community. And one thing we see in these cases is that the lack of answers, it just amplifies that psychological impact. It's not just about the missing person. It's this fear, this uncertainty. It just takes over the community.
Yeah, it's like that fear. It becomes a part of everyday life. Who can you trust? What's out there?
Yeah.
Will anyone ever really be safe? And those fears, they're only made worse by all the media attention.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sensationalized headlines, all the speculation, it turns a tragedy into a spectacle, makes it even harder for people to heal.
It really does. And speaking of disappearing, let's talk about Paula Weldon. It's December 1st, 1946. 18-year-old Paula, she decides to go for a hike on the Long Trail. It's a popular hiking route in the Green Mountains. But here's the thing. This isn't some, inexperienced hiker going into the wilderness, totally unprepared. She was a college student. She knew the area. But here's where it gets weird. There were all these reported sightings of Paula after she left her dorm, but before she disappeared.
Yeah, and it's the number of potential witnesses that's really interesting. A gas station owner across from her college said he saw her. A local man said he gave her a ride. Another hiker on the trail. It's almost like with each encounter, she was slowly being erased.
It's like a glitch in the matrix, right? And even with this massive search, students, local police, even the FBI, nothing. No Paula. No clues. No answers.
Paul's case really shows us something we see in a lot of these missing person cases, the limitations of resources. Even when you throw a lot at it. You can have hundreds of people searching, but if that one piece of evidence is just out of sight, or if the trail goes cold quickly, it becomes almost impossible.
Yeah, it becomes a race against time with time winning almost every time. And Paula's case, it's really just the beginning for the Bennington Triangle.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few years later, 1949, 68-year-old James Tedford is on a bus. He's heading to Bennington and he vanishes. He was last seen talking to a friend during a stopover. He even confirmed his travel plans and then gone.
And to make it even stranger, all his stuff, it was still on the bus. Luggage, ticket, wallet, everything but him. It's like he stepped off that bus and into thin air.
Right. Like those stories where people vanish from locked rooms, but this time it's a moving bus. And then, as if that wasn't unsettling enough, just a year later, 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson disappears.
Paul's case is just heartbreaking, really. He was playing at the town dump with his mother when he disappeared. I mean, they were in a familiar place, safe. And he was just gone. They brought in bloodhounds and everything. The trail just stopped near a highway.
It's like this picture in my mind, Those bloodhounds, they hit that highway, and it's like the mystery just ends at the edge of something bigger, something else. And if Paul's case wasn't tragic enough, a few weeks later, 53-year-old Freda Langer disappears on a camping trip with her family.
This one's different, right? Because with Freda, there is some kind of ending. They found her body months later, ruled an accidental drowning. But there's a reason why her case is still part of the Bennington Triangle story. The circumstances, they're still strange.
It's like the one time they do find someone, it just makes the whole thing even more mysterious.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't sit right. And then, just to add fuel to the fire, 1950 claims one more victim. 16-year-old Martha Jeanette Jones.
Poor Martha. Her case, it really highlights how, miscommunication and assumptions, they can really get in the way of an investigation. It turned out her family thought she was at school, the school thought she was at home, so by the time anyone realized she was actually missing, an entire month had gone by.
Wow, a month. That's a lot of lost time. I mean, those are missed opportunities to follow leads, to talk to witnesses. A good reminder that even when we're trying to find the truth, human error, even bureaucracy, they can really slow things down.
They can, for sure. So you've got these disappearances, all within 5 years, all in this one area, and only one body ever found. It's no wonder the Bennington Triangle just became, this breeding ground for speculation and these wild theories.
Oh, for sure. Whenever there's a lack of answers, we tend to fill in the blanks. And sometimes those blanks get filled in with, pretty far out ideas.
And in this case, right, I mean, we're talking everything from, okay, maybe there was a serial killer, or, hey, maybe it's the landscape itself, to straight up Bigfoot sightings, UFOs, even portals to other dimensions.
Forget, these were real people with families, dreams, and their stories. They get lost in all the mystery and speculation.
It's a good reminder that behind every legend, every mystery, there are real people who deserve our attention and our empathy and our effort to find the truth.
Well said. And on that note, let's switch gears from the wilderness to, a completely different kind of environment, the deep, dark world of cave diving.
Right. It's like you'd think that environment, unlike the wilderness, would make it easier to find answers, but that's not always how it goes, is it?
No, not at all. And to show you what I mean, we're going to talk about the disappearance of Ben McDaniel. This was back in 2010. Ben, he was an experienced cave diver. He knew the Vortex Spring Cave system in Florida. He knew the risks. But when he doesn't resurface, a search party, they find clues that just don't add up.
Clues that don't really make sense for someone with his experience, right? Like his air tanks. They're all filled with regular air.
That's right, and that is a huge red flag, especially in a cave system like that one. At those depths, regular air, it increases the risk of something called nitrogen narcosis.
Okay. For those of us who don't spend a lot of time cave diving, what exactly is nitrogen narcosis?
So basically, it's a condition that can happen when a diver goes down to a certain depth while breathing air. The deeper you go, the more pressure. That pressure causes nitrogen to build up in the body, and that buildup, it can make you feel drunk.
So it's like being drunk but underwater.
In a way, yeah. It messes with your judgment, you get confused, could even start hallucinating. And when you're in a cave deep underwater, you need to be able to think clearly, right? Make good decisions. Nitrogen narcosis, it can be deadly.
And Ben, he knew this. He'd been in that exact cave before. So why wouldn't he use the right gas mixture for that depth? Was it just a mistake? Or is there something else going on?
Those are the million-dollar questions, right? And they're the questions that have haunted investigators. It's like having a puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing. And the ones you do have, they just don't fit.
It's like knowing something isn't right, but you can't figure out what it is. And for Ben's case, it's even more unsettling because even after an extensive search by some of the best cave divers out there, they found nothing. Not even Ed Sorensen.
Ed Sorensen, I mean, this guy was the guy for cave diving and recovery. If anyone could have found Ben, it would have been him. But even he came up empty.
Which just makes the whole thing that much stranger, don't you think? I mean, if a body is lost in the ocean, it's the ocean. But a cave system, it's a contained environment. Should there be something there, some indication?
You'd think so, yeah. And it's that lack of clues that really got people speculating. Were the other divers with him somehow involved? Did they know more than they were letting on? Did Ben disappear on purpose?
That's a theory that comes up sometimes, right? That someone would just walk away from their life and leave everyone wondering, what would even cause someone to do that?
It's hard to imagine, isn't it? I mean, the level of desperation. Or maybe a desire for a clean break. It's hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. And without a body, it makes it even more plausible, don't you think? That question mark is always there.
It is, yeah. And to add to it, Ben's parents, they think something happened to him. They even think the dive shack owner was involved, which, and this is a weird twist, he died shortly after Ben's disappearance. Freak accident. Fall down some stairs.
Oh, wow. Talk about life imitating art, or in this case, a true crime documentary. Makes you wonder what secrets are buried out there.
It's a scary thought. And sadly, despite everyone's best efforts, the theories, the desire for answers, Ben McDaniel's disappearance, it remains unsolved.
Makes you think, right, about those little moments, those choices we make that can change everything, or, in this case, make someone just disappear.
That's a good way to put it. And it actually leads us right into our next case. Amy Lynn Bradley. Her story, it starts in a place that most people think of as, well, paradise, a cruise ship.
Right. It's supposed to be relaxing, a getaway. But for Amy Lynn and her family, that vacation turned into a nightmare. The year is 1998. Amy Lynn, she's in her 20s, and she's on a Caribbean cruise with her family. Second night of the cruise, she vanishes. Gone.
And Amy Lynn's case, it shows just how hard it is to investigate a disappearance at sea. You're dealing with a crime scene that, well, that never stops moving. Jurisdiction issues if the ship crosses into international waters. And then there's the ocean itself. It's massive.
You've also got a lot of potential witnesses, right? Most of them strangers. And they might not even know they saw something important. And with Amy Lynn, there were sightings, but none of them really panned out.
It's like trying to grab onto smoke. You know, you see these little bits and pieces, but then they're gone.
So what do we know about Amy Lynn's last known whereabouts?
Okay, so last anyone saw her, she was on her family's cabin balcony. It was early morning. Her father had seen her there. But when he looked again, just moments later, gone. No struggle, no note, nothing.
I can't imagine what her family must have gone through, dealing with the cruise line on top of everything else. It's awful to think about. But in that situation, every second counts.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there were a lot of delays in getting that search going.
Yeah, and you hear that a lot from families in these kinds of situations, like the people in charge, the cruise line, a resort, even the police. They're more worried about, keeping things calm, protecting themselves than actually finding their loved one.
It's just awful. And for Amy Lynn, it sounds like the cruise line, they didn't want to upset the other passengers. Like they were putting that ahead of the investigation. They refused to even make an announcement, or search the cabins, so they didn't want to cause a panic.
Which makes you wonder, what were they trying to hide? Or were they just in over their heads?
It makes you wonder how often things get swept under the rug in those places. But back to Amy Lynn, there was that possible sighting with a man she was seen dancing with. We said he didn't see her after that, but do we know anything about him? Could he have been involved?
Not much is known about him. He was reportedly a crew member, but the details are thin. Maybe it's on purpose, or maybe it's just time, lost information. But it's frustrating for everyone who wants answers. Did anyone on that ship see her after that night? There were those supposed sightings. A beach in Curacao, a woman who looked like her in a brothel. There was even that photo. Showed up years later. Looked like a website, But are any of these real leads? Or are they just, people wanting so badly to find her, to have some kind of closure that they see what they want to see?
That's a question that comes up in a lot of these cases, doesn't it? We want those answers, those missing puzzle pieces that help us make sense of things. And when we don't get them, when possibilities are endless like the ocean, finding peace is hard.
That's true. And that takes us to another case where an entire family vanished, leaving behind, more questions than answers. The Jameson family from Oklahoma. This one always gets me. It's not just one disappearance, it's three. Husband, wife, and their little girl. The year is 2009. Bobby Dale and Sherilyn Jameson and their daughter, Madison, she was 6, they disappear from their home in Eufaula. Their truck is found a few days later, about an hour away, but get this.
This is the one with the money in the truck, right?
That's the one. The truck, it's abandoned. But it's not just the truck. They left everything. Their IDs, wallets, cell phones, like they were coming right back. Oh, and their dog. Thankfully, it was still alive. But the really weird part, there was $32,000 in cash just sitting there in the truck.
$32,000.
Yeah.
That's not chump change. What were they doing? It's like they left for a quick errand but brought a ton of cash just in case. Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, does it? And that little detail, it just makes the whole thing more mysterious. And it makes you think maybe it wasn't just a quick trip. Maybe they were meeting someone. Starting a new life? Who knows?
And to make things weirder, there's that security footage from their house, right?
Right, the footage. You see them packing up the truck, but something's off. The way they're acting, their body language, it's like they're stressed, anxious about something.
It's those little things that tell the real story sometimes, isn't it? A look,
Yeah.
a hesitation, like their bodies are trying to say something.
Exactly. And then there's the whole haunted house thing. Before they disappeared, Bobby Dale, he told his pastor he thought their house was haunted. He even said he saw ghosts on the roof.
Okay, that's creepy. But was he being serious? Or was it something else? Like maybe he was just trying to make sense of something else that was happening, something he couldn't explain.
We may never know, but it adds a whole other layer to the case. And don't forget, there were all those rumors about Sherilyn. People said she bought a satanic Bible, that the family was in a cult.
There are always rumors, aren't there? Especially when no one knows what happened. People want answers, any answers. But without evidence, those rumors, they do more harm than good.
Oh, they can completely derail an investigation. Give people the wrong idea about the missing. It takes away from the fact that this was a real tragedy.
It really does. So the Jameson family, they were missing for years, until 2013, 4 years, when some hunters found their remains, just a few miles from where they found the truck.
Yeah. It was a sad ending, but at least it was something. Their family finally knew they were gone. But it also brought up more questions. They never figured out how they died.
Murder-suicide. Some kind of accident. Did something happen to them out there in the woods? People have theories, but the truth, it's gone, like the Jamesons. Some people think it was a drug deal gone wrong. Others focus on Bobby Dale's dad, Bob Dean. They say there were problems in the family, but Bob Dean died a few months after they disappeared. So if he was involved, we'll never know for sure.
It's one of those cases where even though they found the bodies, it's still a mystery. Sometimes, even when you get an answer, it's still not clear.
That's true. Okay, well, let's move on to our last case for today. This one happened during the holidays. But instead of being about joy and family, it's a mystery that's still unsolved. The Fort Worth Trio. Christmas, 1974. 3 teenagers disappear from a crowded mall.
And they were never seen again.
Exactly. It was December 23rd, 1974. Rachel Trillica, she was 17. Renee Wilson was 14. And Julianne Mosley was just 9 years old. They were going to do some last-minute Christmas shopping at the Seminary South Mall. It's something that happens a million times in every town every year, right?
And then, in a blink, it becomes every parent's worst nightmare.
That's right. Because in this case, that trip to the mall, it was the last normal thing they ever did. They were supposed to be home that afternoon, but the hours passed, and they never showed up. Their families knew something was wrong.
It's that feeling you get, like something bad happened.
Yeah. And they were right, because Rachel's car was still at the mall, right where she parked it. Doors locked, presents still inside. It's like they just vanished.
And to make matters worse, there was a letter.
The letter. The one that showed up at Rachel's house the day after they disappeared. It was supposed to be from her, but was it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The letter itself, it was short. Like, it was no big deal. Said they went to Houston, be back in a week. Even said where they parked the car. But something about it, it just felt wrong.
It did. The handwriting. The way it was written. Even the way she signed it. Didn't sound like Rachel.
Right. She always called her husband Tommy, never Thomas. And the letter, it said Thomas. Little things like that, they can tell you a lot.
They can. It's like trying to hide something but messing up just a little. And those little mistakes, they can be everything. But the handwriting analysis didn't really tell them much, so no one knew for sure. Could the answer be right there in that letter? It's frustrating.
It is. To think that it might be that simple, but you can't read between the lines.
And just when it seemed like nothing else was going to happen, 6 weeks later, Julianne's mom got a phone call.
Oh, God, that phone call.
The little girl, All she said was, "Mama."
Can you imagine?
It's heartbreaking. A little piece of hope, and then nothing.
Did they ever figure out who it was?
No. Back then, technology, it wasn't what it is now. Couldn't trace the call. Was it a prank? Was it really her? We'll never know.
That's got to be one of the hardest things, not knowing.
It is. And sadly, even with all the searching, all these years, the Fort Worth trio, it's still a mystery. There have been leads, even times where they thought they found remains, but nothing ever panned out.
These cases, as tough as they are to hear about, I think they remind us that the world can be a scary place, even close to home.
They do, but they also remind us to be careful, to look out for each other, and to never give up hope.
Because even the smallest thing, a tiny detail, can be the thing that solves the whole thing. And that's it for this deep dive. Stay curious, everyone. Stay informed, and stay safe.